Happy Monday morning to you. Hope you're doing well wherever you are as we kick off this edition of the panel. November 25th, it is an all-boys club for this edition of the Big Five. 5 big topics of the day that we're all discussing. In the studio with me this morning, it's none other than Projet Montreal advisor Jimmy Zoubris. Hi, Jimmy.
Hello, nice.
And thank goodness, because, you know, when Jimmy's here, I need something to counteract the Jimmy.
Yeah.
And that's the Egbert. Egbert Gaye, the founder and editor of Montreal Community Contact. Hi, Egbert.
How you doing?
Very good. Okay, listen, coming down the pipeline, there's an embargo until 10:30. Not allowed to release the details until 10:30 of the budget. But Marvin Rotrand out there in Côte-de-Nage-NDG, he doesn't care. Already tweeting out some details. If you live in Montreal's most populous borough, Côte-de-Nage-NDG, apparently taxes are going up 3.2%, well above the 2% that was indicated. Marvin Rotrand's tweeting up a storm. He says that's $180 more for a single-family home. Also pointing out, though, that condos are going to see below-average increases, below inflation increases when it comes to property taxes. But with you here, Jimmy, I'm just going to pick a bone. You saw that report in Journal de Montréal saying the city's spending like drunken sailors. That
you saw the first report, not the second report.
Yeah.
The second report was corrected. The city's credit rating has not changed. In fact, there's probably better financial management now than there ever was, because the difference is that we have a lot more projects going on and we're monitoring each one, whereas what used to happen before was they used to present like 10 projects, do 4 of them and say, oh, we got a great budget overrun because they didn't do the other 6 projects. We're really catching up on the infrastructure deficit that's happening. We're spending, but we're within what we had promised.
At 10:30, when we get all the details of this budget, it'll be well within that
promise. The center city's budget, the center city puts in, it's at 2% and 1.5%, as we had said, right? Then, of course, there's every local borough has their own
nuances
that they add on, right? And then, of course, there's that whole formula, which for the life of me, we can sit here and I can, for hours, we can have economists, the way condos are going to pay under the rate, whereas in some areas, I remember last time, RDP, I believe it was RDP Pointe-aux-Trembles, it was at 0.9%, whereas in Plateau was 3%. There's that whole formula across where it's single unit, multiple unit, whatever. The average is going to be 2 and 1.5% from the center city.
So you're not all concerned, and Egbert, please come in on this. You're not at all concerned that we're spending just a little bit too much, too many projects, too many big ideas at a time where, you know, we got a service debt. We want to think about the taxpayer at the end of the day. I would love to see
We live in a big city, Elias. We live in a big, progressive city, and we're supposed to spend money. The problem with these guys, Jimmy and his friends, is that the priorities are all wrong. Of course it's wrong, because we've been spending $5.9 billion every year. That's your budget, $5-something billion. And how much of it goes into some of the key issues that impact some people's lives? Mobility. Transportation.
Well, mobility we've put in, ever since we've come in, we've put in more into mobility than ever there was.
What about social housing? Social housing. We promised, you guys promised last year.
6,000.
No. But you promised last year $50 billion over 10 years. I mean, what are you talking about? $50 billion over 10 years. People with so many homeless people.
They have to build a skating rink, right? They're building a new skating rink.
Yeah, they probably do. While the homeless population
promised
continue to increase.
We promised 12,000 social
housing,
and we're at about 6,000 units right now, halfway through the mandate.
12,000. You promised 12,000.
We're at 6,000 already.
The problem
in 4 years.
It's like the Trudeau government talking about poverty and the rate of poverty. It's the same thing. We're talking about over 10 years. How long do you think? Housing is a right. It's a human right.
Right, but we promised that over 4 years, not 10 years. The 12,000 units is
5 years.
4 years.
5 years.
4 years.
Right? $50 million over 5 years. The problem here is we have to set priorities. We have a big city. We have to spend money. We got to look good on the international stage, but we have to prioritize for people living here.
Housing is a priority. Mobility is a priority, and you saw it with the 300 buses. We're going to start receiving them next year. Business development is a priority. One of the things in the tax rate, and which we did last year, and I won't tell you what it is this year, but it's even better this year, was for up to $500,000 on a business, you got a 10% decrease.
You know what? My
landlord... That covers 90%.
I know. Who enjoy that. How does that trickle down to small and medium-sized businesses.
Because it's 90% of the businesses. 90% of the businesses, because they pay a percentage of the property tax, so it goes down 10%.
That. I do it every month. I pay a percentage of it.
So yours should have gone down.
No, it didn't. And
when
you ask 90% of business owners, they're going to tell you it doesn't.
That's what I keep hearing. Every business owner tells me the taxes are going up, not down. That's
what
I hear.
500,000 was 90% of the businesses in Montreal. There was a decrease, and this year there'll be continued.
For the big investor, for the guy who owns the building, it doesn't trickle down.
I don't listen. I understand. Taxes have to go up. There's inflation and that kind of stuff. What worries me sometimes is that I just have not seen from this administration any sort of press conference like, hey, listen, we're just going to look through our expenses and try and cut some fat. All I see is, hey, let's build this, let's build that. And sometimes you have to pull back a bit. I think that would be a good time. It'd be a good time to pull back before we start at. No. I'm just saying, we're spending $60 million, by the way, to add like digital countdowns for a whole bunch of intersections in this city. I'm not sure that's actually going to work. Yeah, it's over 10 years.
I'm sorry.
But why can't, it's over 10 years, whatever
because
time
that's
it is.
part of our Vision Zero plan.
Yeah.
And if you accept the Vision Zero plan, you have to accept part of that.
Absolutely.
And there was accidents that happened. This has to be part of the thing. And it's done responsibly. Our credit rating hasn't changed in Montreal, because if we were spending like drunken sailors, like you say, our credit rating would have changed. In fact, our credit rating is solid, and in fact, we're right on budget.
Okay, so we will see at 10:30 if, for the island of Montreal and for the homeowners on this city, that promise of 2% for homeowners is respected.
Yeah,
already a little bit higher in NDG.
It's not going to be respected in NDG code the next.
It's not already.
And
that's
you know what's
going to
happen? It's not being respected. We have to shift the priority from homeowners to those who are most vulnerable.
This is going.
That's the families that they need for social housing and low-cost housing. We have to shift the priority. If we're going to have a progressive government in place, they have to act it.
This is going to excite and make a lot of people happy. Me showering more praise on Hydro-Quebec. The guys that do the social media for Hydro-Quebec were on the show on Friday. Absolutely fantastic. If you go to the CJD 800 website, you can listen to that. But this story that came out over the weekend that, again this year, Hydro-Quebec is basically not collecting $100 million worth of unpaid bills. They say part of it has to do with the cold winter we had last year. And, they don't cut the power, right? In the wintertime, they don't cut the power. Don't these guys deserve some credit? As far as utility companies go, right? It could be a lot worse. I hear the utility stories in Ontario. I hear this utility stories in the U.S., and I say I thank every day that we got Hydro-Quebec. Don't they deserve a little bit more credit here? And this is another example of that.
I find this so hard to believe. I'm sorry to say, I find this so hard to believe. I've seen where Hydro-Quebec has tried, a tenant leaves, and it's happened to me, where they try to go after the landlord and say, well, you want electricity, you got to pay his bill. I've seen cases where a person had two places. He was subletting one. The person left. They went after him. They said, we'll cut off your electricity at the other place if you don't pay that one. Hydro-Quebec, obviously, they have a monopoly. Obviously, they use a lot of tough ways, and there's no reason why they shouldn't get paid. But this $100 million, I would really, really, really like to see.
Yeah, I think it's more commercial areas. I don't think it's residential. I don't think it has anything to do with small, medium-sized businesses. I have to shut up a little bit because I'm owing a lot of money to Hydro-Quebec.
Whoa, why aren't you paying your bill, Egbert?
But you know what? Here's the deal. Hydro-Quebec has...
Because it's wintertime now and you can get away with it.
Well, I hope so. But here's the deal. Hydro-Quebec obviously has a lot of money, has its operating budget. I think $5 billion also, like the city of Montreal. They too have $5 billion operating thing. Yeah. If we have $100 million of unpaid bills, it means a lot of people are suffering and cannot pay that bill. What Hydro-Quebec needs to do is to look at its social policy and see how we can accommodate.
By the way, that is part of the $100 million. Is the discounts they give to homes with the low revenues, with low income.
I hope that we'll find a way to excuse a lot of these families that can't afford
especially with the rough winters we've been having.
And I just want to point this out. I question the numbers from the city of Montreal. Jimmy's like, our numbers are good. They check out. And then I mentioned hydro numbers. He's like, I don't believe those hydro numbers for a second.
He's allowed to do that.
Continuing the Big Five with Jimmy Zoubris, special advisor to Mayor Valerie Plante, and Egbert Gaye in the studio this morning. Okay, guys, first things first. Let's talk about Dominique Anglade, hopeful to lead the Liberals. She wants to be the next leader of the Liberal Party. She was asked over the weekend as she kicked off her campaign, hey, and you sort of have to ask the question about even asking the question and what it says to ask the question. But she was asked, is Quebec ready for a black premier? She said, yes, Quebec is ready. There are a lot of people that are saying this campaign is going to be one in the Liberal Party, one of rural versus urban. Is she right? Is Quebec ready for a black premier? And then before that, is the Liberal Party ready for a black leader?
Well, both Quebec and the Liberal Party, they are ready for someone who's capable, who is highly well-educated, and who's highly knowledgeable of Quebec. She brings a lot of heft to this political heft to this whole process. She says she's been out in the rural areas, and she's spoken to people. She says they're ready, and I believe her. She's the founder of the CAQ. She's one of the founders of at least she was the president of the CAQ, and I think she knows Quebec more than anything else. And I think that. I think if there's anyone who can break that seemingly ugly little facade of rejection for minorities, I think Dominique is well placed to do so. I think it's up to Quebec to take advantage of the knowledge and the political skills that she brings.
I have to agree with Egbert. I think that it's not a question of whether she's black or not. I think it's a question of whether she's qualified or not. This is a woman who.
You're talking about. I know. You're talking about. Your thoughts on her. I'm talking about Quebecers. I'm talking about the folks
in. Yes, they're ready because this is a woman that was also, I believe, was she in charge of Montreal International or
her resume is her resume is fantastic.
She's played with the big boys up at the financial level. She's played with the big boys up at the. At the political level.
But you're going off in the question. I keep asking, is Quebec ready for a black premier? And you're like, Dominique Anglade's amazing. I'll say Dominique Anglade, her resume is incredible. She has all the qualifications. But I'm asking, is Quebec ready?
She's going to have to sell her brand for the Quebec Liberal Party because it's not because she's black. It's because she's going to be seen as to Montreal to go in the regions. Yeah. And I think that's going to be Dominique Anglade.
So that's the problem for her, is that she's too Montreal.
Well, the black is an issue also. Quebec is not a province that's openly embracing the immigrants. So the black out in the regions is going to be a problem. But I guess once they realize how much of a Quebecer she is, I would give her the benefit of the doubt, but you cannot discount the fact that she's a black woman trying to win her way into the.
But you got to remember, there's also two things here, right? One is she has to win the Liberal Party, and then it's Quebec.
Yeah.
To win the Liberal Party membership, I think she has an easier chance than to win over Quebec, because then afterwards you have to go into the 450. A lot of these people that supported Bill 21, whatever, which the Liberal Party, she has to sell her.
That's the first question they asked. That's the first question they asked her. What do you do on Bill 21? And she says, you know what, would remove the notwithstanding clause and leave it up to the courts. That's her answer, by the way.
Okay. Right.
She also answered on Bill 101 today. It's very similar.
Yeah.
What'd she say?
She said same thing. I would remove the notwithstanding. I would never use the notwithstanding clause.
Right.
And would you toughen it up or not? And she didn't answer that question. So I think she's waiting to come out on that. So I think the thing is that for her to win the Liberal Party leadership, I think there's a different path than to winning Quebecers. And I think this question is more if Quebecers are ready for a premier who's black. And I think it's going to come down to what her positions are. And I think it's exactly what you said. She's going to need a position on Bill 21, which goes outside the 514.
I will say this. I think Quebec has shown that, just Quebec as a whole, they can fall in love with people, right? And if Quebec falls in love with you, they don't care if what color you are, black, white, purple, doesn't matter if they fall in love with you. If they're not in love with you, then those tendencies, those cultural tendencies, they come out in the forefront. And I think that's, Dominique Anglade has such a monumental task ahead of her. But if she can convince Quebecers that she is someone to love, I think she can actually become premier. And I think Quebec is ready for a black premier. But it's got to be that right person that not only gets them in the minds but the hearts, and that is a tough task.
Well, you got to bring people together, and let's not forget. I don't know what it is, but she's got to have at least 3/4 of that caucus.
She does. She has.
She's managed to get out, not just the Anglophones and Allophone, but she's managed to go out and get some high support. I haven't counted on it, but
Jean in Laval says this: wrong. Rurals will never vote for a black person in Quebec.
You know what? No, you know what? It's okay for Jean to think like that because that's the evidence we have.
Yeah.
Dominique is saying differently. She's saying that I've been to the rural regions, I've spoken to people, and they are accepting.
Montrealers can't even stomach the idea of an Anglophone person as mayor of Montreal, so a black person as premier ain't going to happen. Listen to the text.
Yeah, but you know what? Dominique, as I spoke to Christopher Skeet once, and she was his teacher. Yeah. She was his professor at university, and he speaks so highly of her. He's black, of course, and but he talks about her as a real Quebecer who can.
I think right now she's the front runner for the Liberal Party.
Well, the Liberals, I think that's an easy win for her, but I think
I'm not sure if it's easy.
I think so.
And it's all good. You know what? For that Liberal leadership, it's all going to come down to what the rules are. In that leadership race, right? It depends on what the
you know what?
are.
The only person who can unseat Dominique for this probably would be Carlos Letao.
No.
He's not probably going to do it. But I'm saying no. If it's she against the other guy, no, it's a easy cakewalk.
Guys, I do want to get to if you'd like to be buried with your pet. I'm going to get there, but quickly let's talk about this vote in Hampstead. It's creepy, but we're going to get to that next. But first. Out there in Hampstead, they had a referendum last night. Boy, we love our referendums here in Quebec. Who would think that Hampstead would be the place to go for a referendum? And the citizens in Hampstead residents voted, and they voted down that apartment development, that condo development, that 10-story condo that would have evicted a whole bunch of people from their apartment buildings. The
system worked.
The system worked. That's what you take away.
That's what I take away. I'll tell you something. Maybe without getting into the issue first. This is an issue where a developer wanted to redevelop certain buildings, right? And the council was split on it, and I believe the mayor used his power to override the council.
That's right.
Okay, so what happened was the citizens now have no choice, but they have to start a process, and it's not an easy process. They have to get signatures. You have to go in the registry, whatever, and they didn't just win it by a few votes. They wanted 70%. Now, it's a small area. It's not a huge area. But I'm trying to say is that I find it sometimes. I know that in other areas the referendum thing has stopped certain projects that I would have loved to see go forward. In this one here, the system worked because even the council was divided on it.
The town of Hampstead, they're really, I don't know if cheeky is the right word to put it, but when they sent out the results on the Twitter feed, they list the percentages, not as of a percentage of people that voted, but a percentage of residents.
Right.
Okay. So it came down to 29% of residents voting against the project, but that was enough because it was 70% of the people that voted in this referendum.
That's right.
So that's why I question it, because you had 29% of residents that are now going to got rid of this plan.
The whole process was corrupted from day one. Apparently, the developers did not provide all the environmental and traffic sort of studies that were supposed to accompany the application, and we had a mayor that was kind of.
And the blame does go on those developers too, because they at the last minute they sweeten the deal. Oh, we're going to pay for your moving costs, and we're going to let you move back, and it's going to be affordable.
It's not an issue for people who want to maintain their house.
It just came too late.
But in Montreal, you rarely see the referendum process go through. It happens occasionally. Yeah. Usually, it's the threat of referendum which stops the developers to negotiate.
We love that threats of referendums.
But that's what it is. That's they have that right as citizens, and it's maybe something that the provincial government should look at. But in this case, I truly believe that that the council was so divided that the mayor was trying to get this project done that the citizens spoke.
So you see political manipulation. The only way to deal with political manipulation is to go to the citizens and respect their.
All right, do you love your pet? If so, Cimetière Laval, I guess, is for you for your post-life needs, because this cemetery in Laval is now going to let you bury yourself along with your pet in this, in the same plot. You and your pet can be buried. Maybe a couple of your pets. Would you ever do this? Do you love your pets? Would you ever say, you know what, when I go, I want to be next to my pet forever?
I'm stuck on this one.
Tell us how you tell us because you're so. I mean, you and your dog.
You tell us.
You tell us about that.
So, you're in the hot seat now.
Yeah.
I have a dog. He's also advanced
you're
up there in
pretty
age.
close to your dog,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I've had him for almost 14 years now,
Right.
and he's getting up there, and he's had some health issues. But no, I mean, but the reason I wouldn't do it is because I just find the whole cemetery burial process extremely wasteful. You know, like I'm someone that, you know, I've in my will, it's like don't spend minimum dollars possible on this, take the money, do something useful with it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. I'd prefer cremation or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, I get it because I love my pet. They're a member of the family, right?
Yes,
For a lot of people, they're the child.
Right.
So I get it. I guess it's good that there's finally an option here in Quebec. This is the first place where you can do that.
It's
here.
obviously a case of misplaced emotions. I think, you know, that's that, you know, people shouldn't be thinking stuff like that.
Image
Yeah.
of George H.W. Bush sitting in the casket and his guard dog at the end.
Right.
Oh, was
Yeah,
that-
that was
that-
amazing.
next to him,
That
yeah.
was
just
amazing.
sat next
Yeah.
to him on guard, whatever. So I sort of get that feeling. It's part of the family.
They don't have to be buried together.
Now,
Jimmy.
being buried together, I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
a
know.
little too much.
I don't know.
That's too much.
But you know what? It's an interesting option. I got to tell you, it's the most creative
It's
thing
not-
I've seen.
It's too much. I think we have different places, and I think Puditat is cool being buried wherever I decide to bury Puditat. And Puditat is my boy. Puditat, we've been together for
Puditat.
17 years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
17 years, but I think it's okay for Puditat to be buried somewhere else.
This cemetery, by the way, it's been 5 years that they've had a separate section just for the pets. So
Yeah.
what's changed here
And
is
that's
that
cool,
now
too.
you can go with the pet in the same plot. And I just want to mention this. The story's in Journal de Montreal, and they've got a really great photo of one of the tombstones of a pet that's there. Let me tell you, you look at this tombstone. This is like the nicest tombstone I've ever seen for any pet. Okay, or
You
for
know
a
how
human.
creepy this is. You understand that,
I know.
right?
So,
Okay.
and by the way, it's a unilingual English tombstone. I wonder if that's legal.
Okay.
And apparently this dog was a Christian because it's got the crosses on it, and it lived for 15 years. It was forever strong, forever in our hearts. It's just a beautiful. People care. So I'm just saying, it's an example that
No,
people
it's
care.
understandable.
I get it. I
Yeah,
get it. But
again, it's
I don't think it would be for me. I
Yeah.
But I get
know,
it.
Runaway, awkward emotions, just like too
And
much.
and there's a text here. Well, what if your animal doesn't die on the same day? Yeah, that's of course. Like you're not. These aren't being timed. Did you hear about the like? I forget what.
Yeah.
It was not in this country, but there's another
It wa-
country.
yeah, I remember.
where someone actually had it in their will that the pet gets euthanized to go
kill-
with them.
No.
You gotta. Of course, yes, of course. We
Jeez.
spoke about that. You know.
That's
Nuts.
creepy.
Yeah.
That is creepy. Okay, fellas, Boys Club worked out okay. Thanks for joining us, Jimmy Zoubris and Egbert Gaye.